I came back from the hospital expecting a warm embrace, only to discover my in-laws had taken over my bedroom. When I asked my daughter why, she coldly pointed at the doghouse and said, "That's where you'll stay now." The betrayal cut deeper than the surgery itself, but instead of arguing, I moved into my $1 million villa. A month later, she knocked on my door, asking if she and her family could stay with me. You won't believe how I responded. Before I tell you, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. My hand shook as I dialed the numbers one by one. The medication made it harder, buttons seemed smaller, my fingers clumsier. 3 days after the operation, they were finally sending me home. A small duffel bag rested at my side on the hospital bed, carrying everything I'd brought: my cardigan, my reading glasses, the book I'd never managed to finish. The phone rang twice before my daughter's voice came through, sharp and distracted. "Adeline, sweetheart, they're discharging me. Can you come pick me up?" My voice sounded faint, worn down by days of tubes and medication. There was a pause, then background noise, cash registers, customers. She was still at work. "Dad, I'm busy. Just get a motel or something." The line went dead. I sat frozen, staring at the phone in my lap as the dial tone buzzed like an angry insect. The ring on my finger slid loose. I'd lost so much weight in those weeks. Harsh fluorescent lights flickered overhead, throwing uneasy shadows across the discharge papers in my hand. "She's joking, right?" I whispered to the empty room, my words bouncing off sterile walls. Nurses walked briskly past in the hallway, shoes squeaking on polished floors. The sting of disinfectant filled the air. I tried her number again, straight to voicemail. Her cheerful recording played. "Hi, you've reached Adeline Thompson. Leave a message and I'll get right back to you." I hung up without saying a word. My cardigan hung loose, draping over me like clothes on a scarecrow. I folded it the way my late wife, Martha, always used to fold my work shirts. Surely Adeline would explain later. She had too much on her shoulders: the kids, the house, and Carl, though Carl never really pulled his weight. On the nightstand sat a taxi card I'd picked up in the lobby, just in case. My hands trembled as I dialed. "City cab. I need a ride from Mercy General Hospital to Evanston." 20 minutes, sir." I gathered my things slowly, each motion sending jolts through my chest where my ribs had been split open. The surgeon had explained everything, but the details had blurred like watercolors in the rain. What mattered was going home. To Tommy's baseball cards scattered across the kitchen table. To Lily's crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator. The taxi would be here soon. I checked my watch. 4:30. Adeline's shift would end by 6, we'd talk then. She'd probably laugh about the call, tell me how hectic her day had been. In the window's reflection, a pale, thin man stared back. When had I gotten so old? The surgery had aged me years and days. But I was alive, that was what mattered. Alive, and heading home to the people I loved. A horn honked outside, the taxi. I stood carefully, testing my legs. Everything felt fragile, but I had to be strong. The leather seats creaked as I lowered myself into the cab, clutching my bag. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, a pale man in oversized clothes, moving gingerly. "Where to?" 1420 Oak Street, Evanston." The words left my lips like a prayer. I'd sold my Detroit home 2 years ago to help with their mortgage. That house was supposed to be our home, family waiting inside. The engine rumbled, and winter's gray streets rolled past. Streetlights blinked on early, Christmas decorations still clinging to windows, weary and faded in January's cold. 5:15. Traffic crawled along Lakeshore Drive, brake lights glowing red on wet asphalt. The radio hummed soft jazz, Martha's favorite when she cooked. My chest ached, but not from the surgery alone. "Been in the hospital long?" the driver asked gently. 3 days. "Heart surgery." The words were easier now. I'd said them to doctors, nurses, even the chaplain. "My family's waiting for me." He nodded and focused on the road. The heater pushed warm air that smelled faintly of coffee and old upholstery. I pressed my cheek to the window, watching the familiar sights pass. The park where I taught Tommy to pitch, the ice cream shop where Lily always begged for strawberry with sprinkles. My breath fogged the glass. How many times had I taken this route? Grocery trips, school pickups, doctor visits. But this ride felt different. More fragile. More uncertain. Home was just ahead. This had become my world now, smaller than Detroit, yet somehow warmer, more immediate. Still, Adeline's voice lingered like a splinter in my mind. So cold, so unfamiliar. But she'd been carrying heavy burdens lately, Carl's reduced hours, school expenses for both kids. I tried to help, drawing on my savings more than I probably should have. What are savings for, if not family? Find yourself a motel. The words repeated in my head. She couldn't have meant it, not my Adeline, the one who used to curl up on my lap for bedtime stories, the one who called every Sunday just to chat. Stress could twist anyone's words. I'd learned that after Martha died, grief and pressure could make people say things they didn't truly mean. The taxi turned onto Oak Street. My chest lifted despite the ache. Almost home. Almost to warm embraces, to little voices calling. Grandpa's back! Tommy would be eager to show me his newest dinosaur drawing. Lily would insist on making me tea in her tiny play kitchen, plastic cups that never fit grown-up hands. House numbers slid past, 1410, 1412, 1416. There it was, 1420. The white colonial with blue shutters I had helped paint last spring. The small front yard where we built a snowman at Christmas. The driveway, empty. No Carl's truck. The windows dark. Right address? The driver asked, pulling over. Yes. This is my daughter's house. I fumbled for my wallet, fingers clumsy from cold and medicine. They were probably out running errands. The meter read $18.50. I handed him $25. Martha had always taught me to tip well. Keep the change. You sure you'll be okay? The place looks dark. I have a key. I patted my pocket, feeling the familiar weight of metal. Thanks for the ride. Cold air bit my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk. The taxi pulled away, tail lights vanishing around the corner. I stood alone, bag in hand, staring at the house that had been my sanctuary for 2 years. All the lights were out, completely. Even the porch light Adeline always left on. The windows stared back like unblinking eyes. But I had a key. I was expected. This was home. I walked slowly up the front path, each step deliberate on the slick winter concrete. My key was already in hand when I reached the door. The lock clicked easily, familiar as breathing. Hundreds of times I'd turned this key, coming home from grocery runs, doctor visits, late nights when everyone else was asleep. The door swung open. Silence. Hello? My voice trembled in the dark. Anyone home? Nothing. No television hum. No children laughing. No Adeline calling from the kitchen. I fumbled for the light switch. Click. The living room flooded with light, everything in place, yet profoundly wrong. My brown recliner had been moved to the corner. Magazines gone from the coffee table. Tommy? Lily? I called louder, but the emptiness answered. I moved through the house, past the kitchen where Lily and I made Saturday morning pancakes, past the dining room where Tommy did homework at the big oak table. Everything looked normal, yet hollow, like a museum display of someone else's life. At the end of the hall, my bedroom door stood ajar. A sliver of the room was visible. I had left it neat 3 days ago. Now, suitcases on the bed. Old-fashioned floral luggage that wasn't mine. Men's work boots, size 11 or 12, lined up by the dresser. Prescription bottles I didn't recognize crowded the nightstand. The air smelled wrong, aftershave, unfamiliar soap. My family photos, Martha and me on our wedding day, Adeline's graduation, the grandkids, were turned face down, as if someone couldn't bear to see them or didn't want them looking back. I touched a suitcase with a trembling finger. Solid. Real. Someone else's life had taken over my space. In the closet, my shirts were pushed to one side, crushed by unfamiliar clothes, women's dresses that weren't Adeline's, sharply creased men's pants. My things looked apologetic, squeezed into what little space remained. I sank onto the living room couch, the spot where I'd watched cartoons with the kids just days ago. The house settled with quiet sounds, ticking clocks, humming refrigerator, winter wind rattling the windows. But no human noise, no life. The kitchen confirmed it. Different cups in the sink. Handwriting I didn't recognize on grocery notes stuck to the fridge. Milk from a brand we never bought. Someone had been living here, sleeping in my bed, using my bathroom, sitting in my chair. But where was my family? I checked my watch. 5:45. Hours had passed since my discharge, though only an hour had really gone by. Time had warped while my world tilted. I tried Adeline's number again, straight to voicemail. Carl's too. My chest tightened, not from surgery, but something deeper. Find yourself a motel. She had known I wouldn't be welcome. She knew strangers were sleeping in my bed. But why? What had I done wrong? I'd helped them buy this house, sold my own place, given them money for the down payment. I'd moved in to help, to be family, to be useful. The front window reflected the empty street. No cars pulling in. No one returning to explain, to laugh off a misunderstanding, to welcome me back. Then a car engine approached, growing louder. Doors slammed. Voices carried across the cold air. My ribs throbbed. My heart pounded. Footsteps on the porch. A key in the lock. I stayed frozen on the couch, holding my breath as the door swung open. Headlights swept across the yard. 2 cars in the driveway, Adeline's Honda and an older sedan I didn't recognize. Doors slammed. Voices called in the night air. I rose, trembling, and stepped onto the porch. The winter wind hit my face like a slap, yet warmth surged through me as 2 small bodies broke free from the group. Grandpa! Tommy's voice cracked with pure excitement. You're home! We missed you so much! Lily ran faster, her short legs pumping, arms wide. Did the doctors fix your heart? Does it still hurt? I knelt carefully, mindful of the surgical stitches along my chest, and gathered them both into my arms. Their warmth thawed the icy knot lodged in my heart. My heart feels perfect now that I see you too, I whispered. Behind them, Adeline emerged from the driver's seat, her expression unreadable, a mask I didn't recognize. Carl slid out of the passenger side, avoiding eye contact. From the second car, 2 older figures approached, a stern-faced man in work clothes and a woman clutching her purse like a weapon. Dad! Adeline's voice cut through the children's chatter, sharp as the January air. What are you doing here? I rose slowly, one hand on each grandchild's shoulder. I live here, honey. They discharged me this afternoon. Carl shifted nervously. We weren't expecting you tonight. The older couple advanced, their eyes calculating. Vera, Carl's mother, adjusted her coat possessively, while Eldon crossed his arms, frowning. Complications. Eldon muttered under his breath. Tommy tugged at my cardigan. Grandpa, we went to the new pizza place, the one with arcade games. I saved you 2 quarters for next time. Lily bounced on her toes. I drew you a heart. Mommy said you might not want hearts now, but I think you would. It's a happy heart with a smile. Their innocence clashed violently with the tension radiating from the adults. Adeline's jaw tightened as she watched me with the children. Carl fiddled with his phone, pretending to be absorbed. Eldon and Vera flanked the group like spectators waiting for the main event. The porch light cast harsh shadows across everyone's faces. Frost glimmered on the car windshields. In the distance, traffic hummed. Neighbors' windows glowed warmly. Cozy families inside. But here, the cold came from more than just the winter air. Grandpa's hands are shaking, Lily whispered, loud enough for all to hear. I wasn't cold. I was terrified. The suitcases in my bedroom. The photos turned face down. The prescription bottles. It all clicked as I looked at the 5 adults arranged around me and the children. Adeline inhaled sharply, stepping forward with purpose. Keys jingled nervously in her hand. Her eyes, fixed on me, held a determination I had never seen before, calm, precise, almost businesslike. Dad, we need to talk. There have been some changes while you were gone. The same chill I'd felt waking up in recovery shot down my spine. Tommy and Lily stiffened beside me, sensing the tension. What changes? My voice steadied despite the fear. And whose things are in my bedroom? Adeline glanced at Carl, who immediately became fascinated by his shoes. She squared her shoulders. Eldon and Vera needed a place to stay. Your room was available. Available? The word felt foreign. But I live here. This is my home too. Vera stepped closer, purse clutched like armor. We're family. We have rights. Eldon nodded. The boy needs to understand practical arrangements. I turned to Carl, hoping he would defend me, explain this was temporary. Instead, he cleared his throat weakly. We thought you'd understand. He muttered. Understand what? My surgical scar throbbed sharply beneath my shirt. That I had been given away my own bed while recovering from heart surgery? Tommy's head swiveled between us, confusion etched on his face. Why is Grandpa upset? What's wrong? Lily tugged at Adeline's coat. Mommy, why are you being mean to Grandpa? Adeline ignored her, eyes locked on me. Actually, Dad, it's not your home. Not anymore. The words hit like a punch. My vision blurred, a dangerous mix of medication and shock. I gripped the porch railing to steady myself. Where exactly do you expect me to sleep? My hands shook. Not from cold now, but from a fury barely restrained. Adeline's mouth curved into a semblance of a smile, one that would have been unremarkable on anyone else. She pointed across the yard toward a small wooden structure near the garage. We made a spot for you right there. My eyes followed her gesture to the doghouse, the tiny wooden shelter that had sat empty ever since they never got the pet they promised the children. In the harsh glare of the porch light, it looked even smaller, more pitiful than I remembered. Comprehension hit like a lead weight on my chest. My own daughter, my flesh and blood, was pointing to a doghouse as my new lodging. You're joking, I whispered. Do I look like I'm joking? Adeline's voice was flat, stripped of warmth, stripped of any acknowledgement of the years and blood we shared. It's weatherproof, she continued practically. You can fit a sleeping bag in there. I stumbled backward, my hand clutching my chest where my heart pounded against my healing ribs. The faces around me blurred. Carl, avoiding my gaze. Eldon, satisfied. Vera, smug with entitlement. Tommy broke from the group and ran to stand beside me. That's not fair. Grandpa can't sleep outside. Lily's small voice cut through the winter air, trembling. I don't understand. Why can't Grandpa sleep in his room? Adeline's tone was mercilessly practical. Because Eldon and Vera are paying rent. You're not. The final shard of betrayal slid into place. Not only had they taken my home, they were profiting from it. I thought of the $180,000 I'd given them from selling my Detroit house, the money that made their mortgage manageable, their life comfortable. Carl finally glanced up from his phone. It's just until we figure things out. Figure what out? My voice gained strength as anger flared. How to house your father-in-law in something meant for animals? The porch light flickered, casting dancing shadows over the absurd tableau. Car headlights painted the scene for all to witness, neighbors probably peeking from behind curtains. The cold wind bit at everyone except me. I felt nothing but clarity. I straightened my shoulders, locking eyes with Adeline, the daughter I had raised, sacrificed for, loved unconditionally, who now considered me less deserving of shelter than strangers paying rent. I see. My voice was calm, steady, controlled. I understand perfectly now. Something shifted within me, not breaking, but hardening. I'll get my things, I said quietly, turning toward the house. Dad, you're being dramatic, Adeline called after me, defensive. Temporary until what, Adeline? I paused at the door without looking back. Until you need money again. Inside, I moved with methodical precision through what had been my room. Vera's floral dresses crowded the closet where my shirts used to hang. Eldon's work boots sat beside my bed like they belonged there. I pushed aside their belongings, collecting my clothes from the corners where they had been shoved. Tommy and Lily followed, their questions a steady stream of concern and confusion. Grandpa, where are you going? Can I come? I folded my shirts carefully, the way Martha had taught me decades ago. I have somewhere else to go, sweetheart. Don't worry about me. But you just got home. We plan to build snow forts tomorrow. Tommy's voice cracked with disappointment. In the jewelry box on the dresser, I found my wedding ring and Martha's engagement ring, waiting for no one. I slipped it onto my finger. The familiar weight brought comfort. A memory surfaced, Adeline at 25, crying in my kitchen after her divorce. Dad, I don't know what I'll do. The kids need stability. I'd held her then, promising that things would work out. When Carl arrived, I'd welcomed him like a son. When they bought this house, I'd sold mine without hesitation. The children need their grandfather, she'd said. Then, we need you here, Dad. Now, the photos of our family lay face down in the dresser drawer. Tommy's school picture, Lily's ballet recital, Adeline's wedding, hidden like shameful secrets. I tucked them into my suitcase. From the living room came Adeline's voice explaining to the children. Grandpa needs to stay somewhere else for a while. It's complicated. Carl's weaker voice chimed in. We'll see him on weekends. Eldon, practical as always. This arrangement works better for everyone. I donned my heaviest coat, readying for the journey ahead. My small suitcase contained everything that truly mattered. Photos, a few changes of clothes, my father's watch, everything else was just objects. In the living room, I dialed the taxi company with steady fingers. I need a ride to Michigan. Yes, I can cover the distance, I added before anyone could object. Adeline's head snapped up. Michigan? Dad? What's in Michigan? I said nothing. Behind her, Carl and his parents exchanged uneasy glances. They hadn't considered that I might have options, resources beyond their assumptions of helplessness and dependency. 20 minutes later, headlights appeared in the driveway. The taxi driver, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, helped me with my suitcase. I knelt one last time to hug my grandchildren. Will you call us? Lily whispered against my ear. Every day, I promised. And I meant it. Tommy hugged me tightly. I love you, Grandpa. I don't understand why you have to go. Sometimes adults make choices that hurt people they love, I told him honestly. But that doesn't mean the love disappears. Adeline stood frozen on the porch, watching. For a fleeting moment, her mask slipped. I saw doubt, maybe even guilt, but Vera stepped in beside her, protective and smug, and the moment passed. The taxi pulled away into the crisp night. Through the rear window, I watched my grandchildren wave until the house disappeared behind the bare trees. Relief and heartbreak mingled in my chest, creating a sensation I'd never felt before, the strange freedom of having nothing left to lose. Where exactly in Michigan? The driver asked, glancing at me through the rearview mirror. I recited the address I had memorized from old letters, though I had never been there myself. Olson Manor, New Buffalo. The driver had been silent for the past hour, sensing something significant about this late-night journey. Snow crunched under the tires as we turned onto a long, winding driveway I hadn't seen in 5 years. Through the windshield, towering oaks, heavy with winter snow, arched overhead like a cathedral. This is someplace, she murmured as the house appeared. Olson Manor rose from the darkness, grand and imposing, 3 stories of weathered stone and tall windows, with a wraparound porch I remembered running across as a boy. Uncle Harlan's domain, eccentric, commanding, and utterly unexpected by anyone who'd counted me out. I paid the fare and stood alone in the snow, suitcase in hand, looking up at what I had inherited without knowing it. The cold bit through my coat, but I felt warmer than I had in months. This wasn't charity or borrowed hospitality. This was mine. Uncle Harlan's voice echoed in my memory. "Third stone from the left post, Burl. Count carefully." I found the hidden spot exactly as he'd described, my numb fingers closing around the old brass key. Even from beyond, he had been looking out for me. The front door opened with a satisfying heft. Solid oak, built to last generations. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and old leather, memories preserved in wood and fabric. I located the electrical panel by memory and flipped the main switches. Light poured into the foyer, revealing the crystal chandelier I had gazed at as a child, dusty, but intact. Each room held treasures I had nearly forgotten. The library, with floor-to-ceiling shelves and the massive stone fireplace where Harlan read me adventure stories. The kitchen, its vintage 1950s appliances still gleaming chrome and mint green. Beyond the tall windows, frozen Lake Michigan stretched endlessly under moonlight. I climbed the grand staircase slowly, testing each step. My chest ached from surgery, but not from pain. This was the ache of possibility expanding, of opportunity regained. The master bedroom overlooked the lake. Its four-poster bed was neatly made, linens fresh. Someone had been keeping this place ready. On the mahogany desk sat a manila envelope in Harlan's precise handwriting. "For Burl, should family disappoint you." My hands trembled as I picked it up. Uncle Harlan, dead 5 years, had somehow known this day would come. He had anticipated that the people I trusted most would fail me and had prepared a refuge when I needed it most. The envelope felt substantial, filled with letters, documents, and instructions meant for this exact moment. Everything Harlan had never spoken aloud, waiting until I was ready to receive it. I sank into his leather chair, letter opener in hand, and realized I was not the powerless, displaced man my family had cast aside. I was Burl Olson, rightful heir to 8 decades of history, sitting in my own mansion, with resources they could not imagine. Tomorrow I would read what Uncle Harlan had left behind. Tonight, I would sleep in my own bed, in my own house, for the first time in 2 years. Sunlight poured through unfamiliar windows, a gentle reminder that this wasn't a dream. Beyond frost-patterned glass, Lake Michigan sparkled under the morning light, and in the distance, a train whistle echoed across the quiet winter landscape. Uncle Harlan's letter lay unopened on the nightstand. I lingered, savoring the calm before discovering what he had foreseen about my future. When I finally opened it over morning coffee, his voice spoke clearly through his careful handwriting. I knew this day would come. The Burl family often mistakes generosity for weakness. Each line felt like permission I had waited years to receive. This house has belonged to our family for 80 years. It is yours by right and by heart. Do not let them burden you with guilt. You have already given enough. Day by day, the house awakened under my care. I dusted each surface with slow, deliberate movements, mindful of my healing chest. The hardware store owner recognized me immediately. "You must be Harlan's nephew. He spoke about you constantly." At the grocery store, the clerk smiled warmly. "Welcome back to New Buffalo. Stay a while this time." By the third day, a rhythm had formed that felt more natural than anything I'd known in years. Morning coffee while the sunrise painted the lake in shades of gold and rose. Light household chores spaced for recovery. Afternoons spent in Uncle Harlan's library, surrounded by decades of carefully curated books. Next-door neighbor Mrs. Peterson delivered homemade soup. "It's good to see life in this house again. Your uncle was the finest man I ever knew." Her words carried weight, and I felt the town's quiet embrace, the community that had loved Harlan now extending its welcome to me. Calls from Adeline's number buzzed constantly, messages I deleted without reading. For the first time in years, no one demanded my attention, no chores, no obligations, just quiet, healing silence. The diner waitress, Sarah, remembered me from childhood visits. "Your uncle always said you'd end up here. You have his sense of what truly matters." She refilled my coffee without prompting, offering the kind of genuine care that comes from deep-rooted connection. Each day brought subtle improvements, appetite returning with home-cooked meals, sleep coming easier in a bed that belonged to me, energy gradually rebuilding as stress melted away. Most importantly, my confidence in my own worth returned. For the first time in years, I wrote in my journal, "Nobody needs anything from me except what I choose to give." Uncle Harlan's wisdom became clearer with every passing day. The townspeople will welcome you. They remember me fondly, and they will see me in you. He had been right, about the betrayal, about the sanctuary I would need, about the healing power of belonging somewhere by choice rather than obligation. By the end of the week, I had settled into a rhythm that felt like home after a lifetime of wandering, morning walks along the lake shore despite the cold, light afternoon projects around the house, quiet evenings in the library with books I had never had time to read. My reflection in the hall mirror revealed a different man than the one who had left Chicago, stronger, calmer, a man who commanded his space rather than meekly existing in it. Then the peace broke. Gravel crunched outside. Through the window, I saw a familiar Honda pull up, followed by a second vehicle I didn't recognize. 4 weeks of serene mornings ended with the sound of engines. I watched from the library as Adeline stepped out of her car, her anger radiating with every movement. Carl followed, cautious, eyes scanning the manor as though calculating its worth. I opened the front door before they could knock. My house. My rules. My authority. How could you hide this from us? Adeline demanded, her voice cracking with fury and maybe fear. We're your family, she added, voice shaking. The same way you hid your plans to toss me aside like garbage, I said calmly, unmoving in the doorway. Carl stepped forward, eyes fixed on the crystal chandelier behind me. Do you know what this place is worth? We could have helped you manage it. Manage it into your bank account, you mean? I said, noting the flush on his face. They pushed past me into the foyer. Adeline spun to face me, desperation and disbelief in her eyes. We gave you a home for 2 years. You gave me a corner of my own money. I paid for that house, I said, steady, without anger, just the truth. For the first time, Adeline looked uncertain. The manipulation that had worked for decades ran into a wall. I was no longer the desperate, dependent father she thought she could control. Dad, you're being unreasonable. We're family. Families share. Families protect each other. I interrupted, calm but unwavering. Families don't point to doghouses when their relatives need shelter. Carl wandered through the rooms, appraising furniture and artwork like a realtor. This place must be worth over $1 million. Think what we could do with that money, the kids' college funds. Funny how their welfare only matters when it suits your purposes, I said, following him into the living room, watching him calculate square footage and property value. Adeline tried a different tactic, tears. I made one mistake, Dad. One bad day. You planned this, I said, voice calm but steel-hard beneath it. You moved strangers into my room while I was recovering from heart surgery. You pointed to a doghouse like I was less than human. That wasn't a mistake. That's who you really are. The family portraits on the walls seemed to watch our confrontation. Generations of Olsons who had worked and sacrificed to build something enduring. Their eyes bore silent witness to the truth I now stood to reclaim. Uncle Harlan's wisdom surrounded me, leather-bound volumes, carefully curated furniture, a legacy preserved in every detail. This wasn't merely a house. It was my heritage, my rightful domain. We need this, Carl said bluntly, abandoning any pretense of sentiment. Our situation, it's worse than you know. We could lose everything. Then you should have thought of that before you lost me, I replied evenly. The simplicity of it seemed to knock the wind out of them. No bargaining, no elaborate justification, just the inevitable consequence of their choices. They had gambled with my loyalty and failed. Now, in my house, they were reduced to pleading with the man they had tried to discard. Adeline made one final attempt, her trembling fingers gripping my arm. The children miss you. They ask about you every day. For a fleeting moment, I hesitated. Tommy and Lily, innocent bystanders in their parents' greed, tugged at my heart. But they would learn more from seeing consequences enforced than from watching me enable the behavior that had caused all this. Then bring them to visit, I said quietly. They are welcome any time. You are not. The words landed like a physical blow. Adeline's face crumpled, raw emotion finally breaking through years of manipulation. Carl's shoulders sagged, as if the weight of the money he had counted for months had been pulled from his reach forever. This is our inheritance, too, Adeline whispered desperately. No, I said, opening the door wide. Your inheritance was my love, my guidance, my presence. You threw it away. This is mine. Without another word, they left, finally understanding that the powerless old man they had discarded no longer existed. I closed the door firmly and made my way to the library, settling into Uncle Harlan's leather chair. It was time to call my lawyer and update my will. 3 months of quiet mornings had restored more than my health. They had restored my sense of worth. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall library windows, painting golden rectangles across the Persian rug Uncle Harlan had brought back from his travels. I was absorbed in a biography of Theodore Roosevelt when the phone rang sharply, breaking the serene silence. Adeline's name flashed on the caller ID. I stared at it for 3 rings, 4, 5. Part of me wanted to let it go to voicemail, as I had with all the others, but her persistence made me hesitate. Hello? I said, my voice neutral, neither warm nor hostile. Dad, please don't hang up. Adeline's voice trembled, panic bleeding through in a way I had never heard before. I know you hate me, but I don't hate you. I'm not your solution anymore, I said calmly. A long exhale escaped her. The bank, they've taken the house. We have nowhere to go, she said, voice cracking. I set my book down, the leather chair creaking beneath me. Outside, Lake Michigan glimmered peacefully under spring sunshine. And where are your precious in-laws now? I asked. They left, she admitted, broken. They packed up and drove away the minute they heard about the foreclosure. Didn't even say goodbye to the kids. The irony wasn't lost on me. Eldon and Vera, who had seized my room with such entitlement, had abandoned the arrangement the moment it became inconvenient. Uncle Harlan's warnings about fair-weather family echoed in my memory. Carl lost his job in March, Adeline continued, desperation spilling over. We missed 3 mortgage payments. Utilities are being shut off tomorrow. Dad, I'm scared. I stayed silent, letting her voice fill the space with the inevitable collapse that follows when people live beyond their means, maxed out credit cards, depleted savings, and friends who no longer answer calls. I made a terrible mistake, she whispered. A horrible mistake. But we're family, doesn't that count for anything? Family protects each other, I said softly. You pointed to a doghouse. I was stressed, overwhelmed, she sputtered. You know how Carl gets. And I know how you get when you want something, I interrupted, calm but with steel running underneath. The question is, what do you want from me now? Through the line, I could hear her crying, real tears, not the manipulative kind she had used so effectively before. It stirred something in my chest, but it wasn't sympathy. It was justice. The natural consequences of their choices had finally come home to roost. Please, help us, she begged. I'll do anything. Sign papers, grant you legal guardianship, whatever you need, just help us. Adeline pleaded. And Tommy and Lily, where are they in all this? At school, she admitted softly. They don't know yet. We haven't told them they might lose the house. Her voice shrank further. Dad, I'm scared. Not for me, I said steadily. For Tommy and Lily. They don't understand why they might lose their home. The mention of my grandchildren stretched the silence between us like a bridge neither of us wanted to cross. I could hear her ragged breathing, the sound of someone finally ceasing to struggle in water. Tommy and Lily can stay with me, I said finally, for as long as necessary. What about Carl and me? We're their parents, she murmured. You're also the ones who tried to make me live in a doghouse, I replied, calm but unwavering. Actions have consequences, Adeline. Yours and mine. That was a mistake, Dad. We were stressed. We didn't think you were calculating. There's a difference, I said, moving to the window. Outside, a pair of cardinals flitted about an oak tree, building a nest. You planned my exile while I was recovering from surgery. You arranged for strangers to take my room. You pointed to an animal shelter as my new accommodations. That wasn't stress talking. That was who you really are. Silence followed. When she spoke again, her voice barely carried. What are you saying? I'm saying the children are welcome here. You and Carl need to figure out your own solutions. But we're a family. You can't separate us. You separated yourselves from me without effort, I said, tracing patterns on the frost-flecked window. The manor has plenty of room for Tommy and Lily. Good schools, safe neighborhood, stable environment, everything children need to flourish. And you? You need to rebuild yourselves. Carl's voice rang from somewhere in the background, reluctant but present. Find work. Rebuild your lives. Learn to stand on your own. I paused, measuring each word. The children can visit you on weekends, provided you have a safe, stable home for them to return to. Adeline's breathing grew more uneven. You're punishing us. I'm protecting them, from chaos, from uncertainty, from adults who make children pay for their own mistakes. Outside, the cardinals had finished their nest, high enough to be safe, with a clear view of threats. You'll always be their parents, but parenting isn't just biology, it's stability. We can change, she whispered, desperate. We can be better. Then prove it, I said. Get jobs. Find a home. Show them what responsibility looks like instead of just talking about it. Her sobs echoed through the phone. Part of me, the part that remembered reading her bedtime stories, holding her hand on her first bike ride, walking her down the aisle, wanted to relent. But Uncle Harlan's wisdom steadied me. Sometimes the kindest act is letting people face the consequences of their choices. What about school? Their friends, their whole lives are here. New Buffalo has excellent schools, I replied. They'll make new friends. They'll have a grandfather who puts their welfare first, not one who uses them as pawns. I never. She started, then stopped. The offer stands, I said firmly. Tommy and Lily are welcome here immediately. You and Carl can visit once you've proven you can provide them a stable home. Another long silence. When she spoke, her voice was hollow with defeat. How long? However long it takes for you to become the parents they deserve instead of the ones you've been. Her sobs came freely now, the sound of someone realizing that actions have permanent consequences. No tears, no promises could erase the doghouse moment. Fine, she whispered, broken. Yes, whatever you want, just take care of them. 3 weeks later, the manor had transformed from quiet sanctuary into a joyful family home. The sound of children's laughter filling rooms that had been quiet too long felt like exactly what Uncle Harlan would have wanted. I stood by the kitchen window, watching Tommy tend the vegetable garden we'd planted together while Lily painted cardinals at the patio table. Grandpa, the tomatoes are growing, Tommy called out, excitement bright in his voice. The boy had grown noticeably taller since arriving. Good care and a little fresh air do wonders, I replied, cracking eggs for our Saturday morning pancakes. The routine had become sacred. Breakfast together, chores divided fairly, afternoon adventures across the property, and stories by the fireplace in the evenings. The children's transformation was remarkable. Tommy's teacher reported marked improvement in both his grades and attitude, while Lily's nightmares about losing the house had ceased after the first week in her sunlit, cheerfully decorated room overlooking the lake. Car tires crunching on gravel signaled weekend visitors. Through the window, I saw Adeline and Carl climb from a battered Honda Civic. Their transportation, like everything else, had been downgraded. Both appeared thinner, worn down by weeks of minimum-wage work and the cramped apartment in a less desirable Chicago neighborhood. Mom! Lily dropped her paintbrush and ran toward the driveway, Tommy close behind. The reunion was charged with emotion, love tangled with confusion, loyalty divided between their parents and the grandfather who had become their protector. I opened the front door before they reached it, maintaining the boundaries I had set. Adeline. Carl. How was the drive? I asked. Fine, thank you, Adeline replied, her voice carrying a newfound humility. Designer clothes replaced by thrift store finds, manicured nails traded for hands roughened by restaurant labor. The children looked vibrant, tan from outdoor activity, confident from stability, thriving in the security the manor provided. Mom, wait until you see my room! Lily exclaimed, tugging Adeline toward the staircase. Grandpa, let me pick out everything, Tommy added proudly. And I'm learning to fix the fence. Grandpa's teaching me how to use real tools. I observed the family from a careful distance, present but reserved. The children needed their parents' love, but they also needed to see that actions have lasting consequences. These weekly visits balanced both, maintaining family bonds while reinforcing the security of their new home. Dad, Adeline approached hesitantly after the children had pulled Carl into showing their latest projects. I want you to know we're trying. Really trying. I can see that, I said, and I could. The arrogance was gone, replaced by sincere humility. Entitled demands had yielded to gratitude. How are the jobs going? I asked. Exhausting. Humbling, she admitted, managing a weak smile. But honest, we're learning what it means to earn a living instead of depending on. She gestured helplessly around the manor's grand interior. Instead of relying on family members you were willing to discard, I finished quietly. Her face flushed, but she nodded in agreement. The afternoon passed in quiet harmony. Carl guided Tommy through a birdhouse project, while Adeline helped Lily with her painting. I watched from my reading chair, Uncle Harlan's book surrounding me like a tangible reminder of wisdom. This is how families should function. Everyone contributing, everyone valued, everyone protected. As evening fell and they prepared to leave, the children hugged their parents tightly, yet showed no desire to pack or follow. Security had become more important than sentiment. We'll see you next weekend, Adeline promised, her tone measured. Drive safely, I replied, meaning it. Once their taillights vanished down the driveway, I found both children waiting in the library, peaceful and content in the home they now truly felt safe in. Tommy sat engrossed in an adventure book, while Lily pieced together a jigsaw puzzle of bright cardinals. The fire murmured softly in the stone hearth, and through the tall windows, Lake Michigan stretched into the distance, endless and calm. Grandpa? Lily glanced up from her puzzle, her small face earnest. Do you think Mom and Dad will be okay? They're learning lessons they need, I said gently. Sometimes people have to lose things they thought were essential to understand what truly matters. Tommy closed his book and studied me thoughtfully, as if recognizing a truth he had somehow always known. Just like how you realized you didn't need to live in someone else's house to be happy, he said. Exactly like that. Children have a way of seeing the heart of a situation that adults often miss. Later, after tucking them into rooms that were truly theirs, I sank into Uncle Harlan's leather chair and opened his journal to the final entry I had discovered earlier that week. The greatest gift we can give children isn't shelter from life's storms, but the strength to face them with courage and dignity. Burrow will understand this one day. He had been right about everything. Family was more than blood, it was choice, commitment, and protecting those who could not protect themselves. Justice wasn't about vengeance. It was about allowing consequences to teach lessons that words alone could never convey. Outside, spring rain began to patter against the windows, soft and steady. Inside, two children slept soundly in their own beds, in their own home, safeguarded by a grandfather who had finally learned the difference between kindness and weakness. The manor felt whole. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.